Okay, so the topic for today is to create a frequency table for categorical variables, whether it's one or multiple. The data set I'm going to use is about hazardous waste sites, and it says new hazardous waste sites are being discovered across the U.S. This data set contains the regions of the country in which hazardous waste sites were found, and the data set is waste.mtw, which is available in the sample data library. So I went to Minitab and I have the sample folder once again. If I was going to open it up, I'd do File, Open Worksheet, go to Look in the Sample Library, start typing waste, and I'll see it there. Okay, so I have it. It's got region. It's a text field, and so all we want to do is get a frequency table. In order to do that in Minitab, we're going to come up under Stat, down to Tables, and over to Tally an individual variable. So it's Stat, Tables, Tally an individual variable. Notice all we have to do is stick the variable or variables that we want. So I'm going to put region over there. I would like you to do your frequency tables so they have counts and percentages, so that's the only other thing I would add. And I would say OK. And so you see that these are the possible regions, counts, and percentages. Now you notice that this table, while it's done, it's got all the information. It's not really a well done table in terms of publication status. So we're going to use that as the stepping stone to create a better labeled table. Okay, so I'm just going to cut and paste it over here into my Word document to start with. All right, I'm going to tell you that for most tables, in order to do them well, you have to do them in Word using the table function. It's been very hard. Now this one's not too bad, you know, but you probably want to write East North Central, East South Central, Mountain Atlantic, Mountain New England. And so by the time you start editing these, everything gets out of whack because of the way that Minitab creates these. And so what I'm going to tell you is that you probably want to insert a table. So my goal is not to teach you a lot about Word, but we're going to do a little bit. So insert a table. I'm going to insert a table that has 3 columns, just like it has now. I'm going to put region, and then I'm going to put count, and then I'm going to have percent. Okay, so, and then all I'm going to do is now I can put my region names spelled out. Okay, and my counts and my percents. Now when we present percentages, they are always rounded to 1 decimal place. So even though Minitab gives us a couple decimal places, we should really only round it to 1 decimal place. And so I will go through these and do the same. And so notice that we can change the widths of these so that, you know, it looks a little bit better in terms of that, so that you have enough space over here. I'm going to put my, if I wanted to rearrange the categories, because right now they're in alphabetical order, you certainly could do that while you were retyping it. I'm not quite sure why they didn't put the formal definitions up there, or the formal language, since they were using it as a text field anyway. But nonetheless, I can do this. What's nice about at least doing it this way is Minitab does, or Word does do a spell check on it. Whether you want to put a total line is up to you, but you should have a table that includes missing values and so on. And so I'm going to tell you that you need a title, right? So this is regions of new hazardous waste sites. Sometimes in my title, I'll put the total sample size. sometimes I do put a title line. At a minimum, this is what we should have our tables look like. Once again, you can kind of straighten this out by maybe doing some centering if you like, but this is a minimum. The title, the categories, the count, the 3 columns, and then the listing. If you want the total line, that's fine. I'm going to take this one step further though and try and get it to APA style. APA style gets rid of a lot of the lines, and so I'm going to come up here and get rid of the lines. They do a top and a bottom border, and so I'm going to play a little bit here with the borders. They do a thin bottom on the first row and a thick upper, and then they put a thick upper on the last line of the table. I'm sorry, a thick bottom. And they might make this column come in a little bit. Okay. And then I'm just going to move it over so it's over on the... There you go. Okay, so you'd probably see something like this. And once again, if there's footnotes, you should add the footnotes to it. Okay. So once again, it's kind of going from Minitab style, okay, to something at least readable, legible, reasonable, category titles, information that we need, decimal places, 1 decimal place, to APA style, which is a little bit more of the formatting and taking a look at it that way. Okay, so that's the basics for a table. Let's try a different type of table, or I'm sorry, a different example of a table here. So I'm going to come back to Minitab and I'm going to open up the restaurant data sets because I want a data set that has some missing data in it. Okay, so I know there's missing data for a type of food. Okay, so I want to play with that. So once again, the easy part of it is to get it out of Minitab. So it's stat, tables, tally individual variables. And maybe I want two. Maybe I want the type of food as well as the type of ownership. So you can specify 2 variables at the same time. Specify counts and percents. That's what we want. And we'll say OK. Notice it gives us the results. So once again, I'm going to kind of cut and paste this into my Word document. Now let me be clear. If I were doing this, I'm not presenting all this information. You would not be presenting all this information to me. The only table I want to see is your final table, whether it's this one or whether it's this intermediate table. I do not want to see the Minitab table in presentation style output. There are times when this is okay. When it's in the condition section, this is okay. If it's in the conclusion section, not okay. Right? So now we've got 2 variables, and once again I'm trying to put this into a nice table. And so once again I'm going to start with, I was going to steal that format, but you know what? I will say table 1, descriptive statistics for restaurants in Wisconsin in 1979. And equal 279. Okay, and now I'm going to insert my table. So insert a table, 3 columns. I will do the variable, the count, and the percent. And so my first variable is the type of restaurant. And so I could space a little bit here if I want to. I could do fast food, in which case there are 113 or 42.3%, and there are supper clubs, and there are 77 of those or 28.8%, and there are other, and there are 77 of those, and that's 28.8%. And then my next variable is type of ownership. And so the first type is sole proprietor. So I'm just trying to line those up a little bit. Give you a few different ideas of how we can do these things. So that's 106 and 39.4%. And then we have partnership, which is 27 or 10.0. And then finally we have corporate, which is 136 or 50.6%. Okay. So that kind of sets up the basics. What we do want to do though is make a footnote that 12 restaurants did not provide information on type of restaurant. And so we can get some spell checking now. Ten restaurants did not provide information on ownership. And I might make a comment that percentages do not round to 100% due to rounding. The fact that we went to one decimal place instead of 2. And I'm actually just going to make these come a little closer here. And now we have a pretty decent starting table. I'm going to kind of move these over so we have a little space. This would certainly be a good table that would work for handing in. Okay, notice that now I've got both categorical variables in the same table. Not a big deal. If you wanted to make it, once again, kind of a little bit more APA fancy, the deal is that you basically just change the lines a little bit here. So I'm going to do that. So the big line on top, the thin line on bottom, and then the same thing here. Okay. Once again, so it's just a little bit of preference, trying to get you ready for APA style, getting you to understand what the information is. And so on. Okay, so important pieces to go from Minitab once again to a presentation style table is certainly a good table title, counts and percentages, and making sure you have appropriate categories instead of 1s, 2s, and 3s that we don't want footnotes in. And then that will give you this. Now notice if I had just used type of ownership, these percentages do add to 100%, so I wouldn't need that. The only reason I need the percentages don't round to 100 is because of this one. 8 and 8 is 16 plus 3 is 19. So it's just, this will add up to 99.9 because of the rounding. Okay, so it's because of that, nothing else. So you don't want a footnote that says they don't round to 100 when they actually do round to 100. All right, so that's how we're going to create frequency tables for categorical variables.